Hello, everyone. My name is Tarik Rukab. I'm one of the trainers at ExitCertified and Axcel instructor-led training. Today, I would like to briefly discuss Copilot along with a quick demonstration. Microsoft Copilot is artificial intelligence built into many of the Microsoft products, as we see right here. We can access it through Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine. We can also just use a browser to bring up copilot.microsoft.com. This is a free version here for everyday use. Depending on what you're trying to achieve, it could be technology related, of course. It could be planning some type of dinner recipe. It could be planning a vacation, just depending on what end result you're looking to achieve. And the idea with artificial intelligence is a lot like talking to a human being. So instead of just doing a search as an example with a search engine, typing one thing in, pressing enter and looking at the results, we're going to interact with the artificial intelligence. And that's really your big difference there. It is also built into Microsoft 365. This one does require additional licensing, roughly about $30 a month, but it's also going to help out with many of the productivity apps and the collaboration apps that we use there. And it will help calculate formulas in Excel, help you build PowerPoint presentations. So many things that we can do with it. And for the most part, I would say we're probably limited by our imagination. We also have Windows Copilot for everyday use. And that is the free version, once again, that we can access through a browser. We can also bring it directly up in many of the applications. And then also it's integrated into the Windows operating system as well. So if you're running the Windows client, whether it's Windows 10 or Windows 11, and you take a look at your taskbar here, you'll see that there is a Copilot icon right at the bottom. In my presentation here at the bottom left here, so we'll see the Copilot icon that we can click and bring up at any time and start interacting with the artificial intelligence right here. Okay, and then from there, they're going to deploy it to many of the other Microsoft products in the Microsoft ecosystem as well. So we have Copilot for Business, we have Copilot for Analytics, we have Copilot for Security. Now, this one, depending on what you're deploying in Azure and Microsoft 365, this one will have cost as well. And the good news is everything's online. Microsoft documents it all in very good detail. So you might want to research before you implement. Now, the Copilot for Security is going to extend security in Azure. So it's going to work with Microsoft Sentinel. It's also going to extend your security in Microsoft 365 Defender as well. It also will help protect your devices if you're using Microsoft Endpoint and Microsoft Intune. So many different versions of Copilot as we see here that can be for everyday use right down to securing our environment. It is also going to be available Copilot for development as well. Okay, so programming side, everyday use, of course, productivity applications, and this is just the beginning. I anticipate that Copilot will get better and better, and it will ultimately be integrated into all of the Microsoft products if it's not already. Okay, so from there, I would like to do a quick demo. And then also, before we go to the very next slide here, I've noticed, or I want to point out rather, that there are two URLs. So copilot.microsoft.com. You can bring this up on any browser, and that is the free, day-to-day use right there. But also, if we're going to kind of focus more on the security, that's going to be securitycopilot.microsoft.com. Okay, so just a couple of two main URLs there I would like to point out. Okay, and then from there, we'll do a quick demo. This is Copilot. If we just go to copilot.microsoft.com here, and this is what it would look like. And this is a PowerPoint here, so I'm going to bring up the real browser in just a second here. And just to reiterate that URL one more time, copilot.microsoft.com. Okay, so let's take a quick look. So if we come in, what I did here is I went ahead and brought up the search engine. Okay, so this is Copilot. Okay, and then I also have a document that we're going to use in just a moment here. Instead of typing in the details, I'm just going to copy and paste it. But before I do that, I want to point out over here on the right portion, you're going to see Copilot. And this is the everyday artificial intelligence companion here. But we also have a designer that will help you configure or create images rather. And same thing, just whatever you want to imagine. So you just type whatever it is you would like to see an image on. It could be, I want to see a shark on a surfboard, right? Maybe with a lunchbox. I'm kind of kidding there, but it would try to create that image for us. Now, from there, there's also a vacation planner. So this is going to get you a little bit more involved with the chat. And like I said, you really want to interact with the artificial intelligence. The more details that you provide and you follow up with the conversation, just like you're talking to a human being. We also have a cooking assistant here as well, and then a fitness trainer. So like I said, it will continue to get better in my opinion, and I anticipate that this will get add on to these plugins here. Matter of fact, there are many plugins available already for Copilot and the artificial intelligence as well. Okay, so what I have here is I have a Word document, and the idea here, let's say that we want to deploy a virtual machine scale set in Azure behind a front-end load balancer, and we also want to set it up for auto scaling. Auto scaling is where we can scale out and scale back in if you're not familiar with that. And the idea here with a virtual machine scale set is I'm going to have two Azure VMs that will act as web servers. And of course, if the traffic gets heavy, we can actually have it scale out from two Azure VMs to maybe 3 or 4, depending on the criteria. And of course, that will accommodate large traffic bursts. And then, of course, once the traffic cools down, we want to scale back in because we're paying for those additional resources. So that's the idea here. So we're going to scale out and scale back in is the idea. And, we could always go into Azure, create this in various ways, whether we do it through the portal, PowerShell, JSON templates, of course. So this is just a quick demo to show you that we could well, I don't want to say easily, but we could write a script, and that might take us maybe an hour. It might take us 2 hours. It may take us 3 hours by the time we're finished debugging and dot the I and cross the T and so forth. So something like that is very time consuming, but the end result is very rewarding. So with Copilot, we just give it the details and it will write the script or the JSON template or whatever it is that we're trying to achieve with our end result. Okay, so I have some details here. So again, I'm going to have it create a virtual machine scale set. I've told it what resource group to deploy it to in Azure, and I named it VMSS-RG for resource group. I'm going to tell it to create a virtual network with 2 subnets. I want a security group that allows and blocks traffic, but I want it to allow 480 and 443 for the web traffic. I am also pointing out the password for the actual virtual machines. And then I'm declaring that I want a minimum of 2 Azure VMs or 2 instances for the virtual machine scale set. And then it can scale out to a maximum of 10 instances. And I've set up the auto scaling features here. And the idea here is it's going to auto scale if the CPU average on the virtual machine scale set is 80% for 10 minutes straight. We feel like that is a bottleneck. And at that point, it will automatically scale out. Now, I also built an additional scaling rule to have it scale back in. So if we take a look at this, auto scale and CPU percent average 50. Okay, so scale in. So once the CPU drops to 50% for about 10 minutes straight, it will then start to scale back in. And then finally, I'm telling it what location to deploy the virtual machine scale set in as well. And if you're not familiar with an Azure location, or really what we call Azure regions, let me correct myself. An Azure region is made up of Microsoft data centers, so physical buildings with Microsoft engineers inside, and literally just racks of cables and Hyper-V servers for the most part. And matter of fact, Microsoft has regions all over the world, very scalable, and we have the luxury to deploy Azure resources in any one of these regions. And over 170,000 miles of racks and cables all over the world are the Microsoft data centers that we call Azure regions. Okay, so let's copy and paste this into Copilot and see the end result here. Okay, so we're just going to paste it in at the very bottom here. And then at that point, at the bottom right, we're going to see a submit option here. Now, you are limited on how many characters you can type in, so you want to try to get as many key points and details as you can, of course. And I felt like I did pretty good here. And to be candid, I probably could have added a few more details, but I'm good with this for the demo. So we're going to go ahead and submit here. And let's see what Copilot feels. And then we'll wait for Copilot to respond. At this point, the information is going in, and now we have Copilot interacting with us. Certainly, let's create an Azure Virtual Machine scale set with Windows Server 2022 installed, Azure Load Balancer. And at this point, you see that it is clearly typing in the actual syntax for the PowerShell script. Now, once this is done, I can simply copy and paste this into Notepad, or really any text editor, save it as a .ps1, and we have our PowerShell script ready. Okay, now, also a lot of times it's also going to indicate any fields or values that you may have to type in yourself manually or fill out, or what variables you may have to make note of. So a lot of times it will also give you additional information or really provide additional information. Okay, so at this point, you'll see, remember to replace placeholder like admin, user, and password with your actual values. Now, depending on what username I want to use to log on to the Azure VMs, I would probably change that and maybe change it to my first name, Tarik. And then the password, I actually do want to use that one. Now, I would never use this one in real world. It's just kind of a one, for a demonstration here, but it is telling me what values I should change in the syntax here. Okay, so hopefully this kind of gives you an idea how great Copilot is, and it's just going to get better. And if you think about it, now this is a script that would probably take a little bit of time to write, make sure that you do not fat finger or misspell or have any typos. So it could be rather time consuming. And then of course you're going to test it, you're going to debug it, and we're still going to do that, right? So even though Copilot wrote the script for us, we would still want to test it before we rolled out in production with it. Okay, and then from there, you'll see, thank you, can I also show you how to deploy in my web application to a VM instance. So you'll see that it's going to interact with me. So it's asking me, do I want to go further with it? And I could say, sure. So if we select that, it's then going to tell me how to do the deployment itself, right? Okay, and then also, let's say that we wanted to convert it over to maybe JSON syntax or something to that extent, right? We could have it convert the syntax as well, which I probably should have done before this one. Okay, but at that point, let's go ahead and give it a shot. It may not do it. Normally it will, but I probably should have demoed that directly after it writing the syntax. Okay, but let's go ahead and ask it. Okay, can you convert this, let's say, to JSON? So maybe I changed my mind. I don't want to use a PowerShell script. Maybe I want to go ahead and create a JSON template to go ahead and deploy this virtual machine scale set in Azure. Okay, so certainly I'm glad it did. Every now and then when I try it, I demo this a lot in my classes, so depending on what interactions I do, it doesn't always do it for me, to be perfectly candid. So I was a little nervous about it not, but thank goodness it did. And again, look how quick that switched over to JSON for me now, right? Same thing. I copy, I paste this into Notepad, save it as a .json, and we have ourselves a template, right? That we can deploy the virtual machine scale set in Azure. Okay, so at that point, we just kind of take a look at the JSON here with all the information I clarified. And like I said, I could have given it more details. I just told it create a virtual network with this name, but I could have clarified the IP address space, so depending on what else I wanted to do there. Okay, but you'll see it did a great job building the JSON template. And I did clarify what version of Windows that I wanted installed as well. And then I also told it to install IIS. So it's going to deploy a virtual machine scale set of Windows Server 2022. It's going to immediately install IIS, immediately making them web servers. We're going to put it behind a public front-end load balancer, which means it will be available on the internet immediately. Now, of course, further development would be required, but we could probably have Copilot do that as well. Okay, so that's a little taste, and I really hope you enjoyed it. And, just depending on what you're trying to achieve, you just saw that I copied and pasted one thing in here. So think of that large scale or tenfold, if you will. But I really hope you enjoyed the presentation here today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I really hope to see you in one of our classes sometime soon.